You're all right. Yeah, I actually have a countdown screen up. All right, I'm good whenever you are. We're up. Just the countdown. Hold 30 seconds. All right, I'll throw your mics hot. Mics are going hot.
Yep, I'm good. Good, good.
All right, Ben, we'll go to you in 5, 4, 3.
All right, it is that time once again. I was on an actual hiatus last week, but I'm back. They gave me my spot back on College Football Live before lock here at Stochastic. Matt Gajewski's in the house as he always is. I am back. I was at the Army UMass game last week. That was a tale, let me tell you. Maybe we'll talk about that. But more importantly, we got 12 big-time games on the slate. We're going to break them down. We're going to talk about betting. We're going to talk about angles. We're going to talk about all the things we've got going on. How are you feeling in week 10 before the madness begins, sir?
Feeling splendid. It's a phenomenal week of real games. I'm really excited for Missouri and Georgia, as well as a bunch of games. We've got the nightcap, USC Washington. For those of you that like all points, that's the game for you. It's on FanDuel, and then the night slate for DraftKings. But yeah, next week's awesome too. We got 2 premier weeks in a row.
Great games. LSU, Alabama today as well. There are just Mary Mac, UMass. It is a laundry list of who's who. Sam Houston State might win today as well. Here we go. Let's get into it, though. I always like to do this right at the top of the board. Thoughts on the slate? Are we looking at 2 QBs? Are we looking at soft pricing, tight pricing, everything in between? What were your impressions when you saw this slate?
It's middling in terms of pricing. There's some values we can get to jam some studs. Don't think you're forced into 2 QB builds. It's really strong at running back. Okay. And the cheap quarterbacks, I think a lot of people are going to play, come with some, at least a couple risks. We'll talk about them individually. But yeah, if you want to run 4 RBs, it's not the worst week to do so.
Not bad. Interesting, because that does change kind of the complexion. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it is. And then the other thing I saw on Twitter, you can follow Matt always at Matt_Gajewski, but a little prize pick action. I do want to mention that right off the top before we even dive into games. We'll be talking about them throughout the show, but if you don't play on prize picks, the link is in our description to sign up. You get that deposit match bonus up to $100. Obviously, you're doing over, under various guys. You had a couple that caught your eye. I saw Travion Henderson was on your card. What did you make of the prize pick slate today?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I didn't even post them all, but did a little 4 pick. I'll highlight 3 of them because Malik Murphy might not play in this game. Some rumblings of an injury for him, which kind of explains the prop dropping. So I would ignore Malik Murphy. But Travion Henderson, I mean, the guy touched the ball 29 times last week. I took his over rushing plus receiving at 96.5. At 29 touches against Rutgers, who does have a good defense, he should soar over this. 5 targets, 24 carries. Mayan Williams out for the year. They hate Chip Trayanum and Dallin Hayden for whatever reason. Ben Sano, he's just priced as if he's a part-time player. They killed the last 2 teams they played, so they just pulled Sano early. He's been dealing with an injury. In a full-time role, which we're expecting here, competitive game against Texas, he should have like a 95+% route share. We've seen that in competitive games. And then Klubnik, awful quarterback, facing probably the toughest defense he's faced all year, already projecting really poorly for us, below 200 yards. The total in the game is low. The only real redeeming quality is volume. He's averaging 37 attempts per game, but Notre Dame is one of the slowest teams in the country. I'm not sure he's going to be able to fire off 37 pass attempts in a game environment like this. So under Klubnik would be my third.
There you have it. Again, you can use our projections and all that to make those decisions, but make sure you hop in there. Again, that link is below for you. We got a bunch of games to get to, and we start with Cade Klubnik and not Will Shipley because he's not playing. But we start with Notre Dame and we start with Clemson in Death Valley, 3.5-point spread. Totals come down a little bit. I actually think I have the wrong number there because I'm an idiot, but talk to me about these games. You told me before the slate that some injuries for this Clemson team, they are really not at full strength. Yeah, this total is down to 43 in some spots now.
Yeah, glad I hit 46.
Yeah, I have
just to run through. Yeah, I mean, they're mostly defensive injuries. You hit on the big offensive one, Will Shipley, but they also don't have Marcus Tate, one of their starting O linemen. But they're down 3 DBs. You are not going to see Sherrod Koval, Sheridan Jones, Justin Maskell, a D end, and that's not even the full list. So, I mean, they're really hurt on defense. I also played Notre Dame recently this morning. It was a late add to the card because of all the defensive injuries to Clemson. It's not a great DFS game. It's basically, do you want to play like a contrarian Audric Estime, or do you want to look to like a really cheap Clemson receiver for volume? I think both are live, but honestly, if you're running like one lineup or 5 or something, you could probably just X this game out because it's so poor. Both teams have elite defenses, so it's not like Estime is going to be looking at a bunch of room to run. He's a volume-based play. Clemson has the number 1 efficiency-wise run defense in the country. So 3.5 yards per carry when you adjust for opponent, they're very good there. Even with the defensive absences, they're mostly in the secondary. On the other side, I think Phil Maffa's now in play with Will Shipley being out. The guy touched the ball 20 times last week, and that was with Shipley playing part of the game. Not an easy matchup for Maffa by any means, but volume should definitely be there. The spread's still competitive. And then you're still debating like the cheap Clemson receivers. I think they all kind of cannibalize each other. Like Jake Brenningstool, 10 targets. Even if he gets 10 targets again, what's the efficiency like for him? So I'm trying to come in really low in the Clemson wide receivers. The only player I have serious exposure to here is Phil Maffa.
Is he cash viable?
Yeah, he's cheap. You could play him in cash for sure. There's like 5 running backs, I think, in play for cash. So depending on where you need to save salary or how the last couple guys shake out, he could be a guy you use.
And you mentioned guys like, these flyers on the outside, Randall, and these cheap receivers. Anything for Notre Dame?
They've been benching guys left and right. I think their starting receivers are going to be Rico Flores, Chris Tyree, and Jaden Greathouse. But then Mitch Evans tore his ACL. So at tight end, I think you see Holden Stas. But you're also going to see a rotation like Jordan Faison's going to play. You're still going to see Jaden Thomas get some reps. And then they'll go pretty deep. So I think it's pretty much a pass.
Anything else from this game? I know we both lean to the under. The line has moved a little bit, and you said you added Notre Dame to the card.
That is true. I took the under and Notre Dame in this game.
I have the under. All right, let's move on to I got to ask because it's the perfect time. You just mentioned because of the prize picks. Does this mean that it could be an Arch Manning game, or am I missing something here?
There's rumors like early warmups. Malik Murphy wasn't on the field. I know he did get in some limited practice, so we'll just have to wait on that news. Not sure yet, but maybe. I mean, Malik Murphy and Arch Manning aren't that different. Malik Murphy's just a pocket passer to begin with, so he didn't project well. I don't think Arch is going to project particularly well. The total is really low, 49 points. So it's going to be a wait and see for the Texas signal callers. I'm somewhat interested in their skilled players, though. Jonathan Brooks has that bell cow workload. He's averaging 115 rushing yards per game. He's averaging another 26.5 as a receiver. Just going to get a monster workload in competitive games. Prior to their recent blowout victory, he'd seen over 20 touches in 3 straight games. So that's solid for him. You can always convince me of like a contrarian Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, or Jatavian Sanders based on talent. I am concerned about the game environment and who's throwing them the ball. But I mean, these are some of the best receivers and tight ends in the country. Jatavian Sanders has also been injured. There's reports of him being limited in practice this week. So he's a guy I'm a little nervous about. So I'm not going to take a stand with him or something, but he's very talented. On the Kansas State side, they're really hard to peg. They run a 2-back committee. Splitting time at QB, I think we mostly see a Will Howard, but Avery Johnson's certainly going to have his plays. Sano's expensive. Normally I want to play him, but 4.9K, he's more expensive than some receivers I really like. Phillip Brooks is the only one who has like a full-time role at receiver. Because of injuries to RJ Garcia and Keegan Johnson previously, they got Jace Brown on the field a lot, and he's played so well that now he's played himself into a role at the expense of the other receivers. So Kansas State's really hard to play. And then for Texas, it's Brooks and then one-offs.
Is that really it for this game? You kind of summed it up on both sides already. It seems like a good real-life game and maybe not the best for the DFS environment.
Correct.
Okay. keep it moving then. This might be another really good real life game. Texas A&M going into Oxford, another 3-point spread, pretty methodical, normal total here. We've seen Texas A&M obviously play big time opponents. There's no doubt about it. And they've hung in some of those games. They just knocked off, held serve against South Carolina at home, but they have to hit the road here. When you look at them, and we've talked about Max Johnson and certainly his turnovers, he's got some guys on the outside. What's going on with that backfield? From Texas A&M's vantage point, who sticks out as a playable option?
Low-ish total here at 52, but this game could get up and down a little bit. Ole Miss plays with a lot of pace, and Texas A&M was until they made the QB change. Johnson's not mobile, so he's sort of in this group of greasy quarterbacks that you can use as like an avenue to studs, but he's not going to be a preferred play by any means. I don't know what they do in the running back room. Le'Veon Moss missed last game, as many of you know. And then they had Ruben Owens lead the team in carries. He's their 5-star freshman. Amari Daniels had to carry 13 times. The previous game, they benched him. We project this as a committee. I'm not going to play a Texas A&M back. In the receiving room, Evan Stewart and Aeneas Smith are both underpriced. Even if we don't love Johnson, they can be used as one-offs. Since returning to that full-time role after he was injured, Evan Stewart has 23 targets over the last 2 games. Smith is just a good price-adjusted play at 5,100 on DraftKings. I prefer Stewart, but I think you can use them both.
Anything else? You mentioned the backfield's kind of rendered useless. On the other side of this game, Mississippi's a good team, and they're still in the hunt for everything. Judkins, Dart, Trey Harris on the outside. Where are these guys? Are any of them cash viable? How do you prioritize the Rebels?
I don't think any of them are cash viable, but good tournament team based on volume and efficiency. Dart has an elite skill set, 326 rushing yards, hyper efficient as a passer, but he only has 27 attempts per game, so sometimes that can be an issue. When they're pressed in games, we do see them get up and down more, so I think Dart is fine for tournaments. One of my favorite expensive tournament options. Judkins is just seeding more work than he did last year, so he's not going to project as well as a lot of backs in this range, like Brooks, Ollie Gordon, even Estime, but you can never really hate on a contrarian Judkins. So if you want to take a stand and play a little bit of him, I'm fine with it. The receiving room is pretty condensed right now. Jordan Watkins, Dayton Wade, and Trey Harris are your top 3. You're not getting a discount on any of them, but I am trying to stack Dart in some of these contrarian builds. I don't have a preference. It's really spread across these 3. So there's no like one clear target getter, wide receiver 1. If I had to pick one, it would be Trey Harris, followed by Dayton Wade, then Watkins, but no real preference. And if you need a cheap Dart, it's going to be Caden Prescore in their tight end. He plays a ton, but he just doesn't get a lot of targets.
2 questions. One, I ask you every week and you tell me no. Are you pairing any like Judkins and Dart together, or any running backs with their quarterbacks on the slate potentially?
I'm not.
Okay. And then 2, if you do go to Dart, you mentioned him as maybe a contrarian pay up option. Is it QB +1, QB +2? Like, how many pass catchers do you want with him?
Forcing 1, if I get 2, I'm not actively forcing it, but I'm not limiting it either, if that makes sense.
Okay. So you're comfortable if 2 pop up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe the shadiest game of the day, only because of line movement. This Arkansas game, I truly thought that like Mertz got ruled out or something. The spread has moved 3.5 points. It's taken resistance at like 2.5. Florida's still a favorite, 49-point total. What a weird circumstance. So let's talk about Arkansas, who has offensive line issues. KJ Jefferson is doing what he can, but he's just been absolutely battered back there time and time again. He can't get anything going on the ground. What is the status of their backfield, and how do you attack with Arkansas today?
KJ Jefferson hasn't been the same play as he was last year because they let all of their offensive line erode this offseason. So he's taken a ton of sacks, and he's averaging like 1.8 yards per carry. And it's not that he's been inefficient. It's just the sacks add up for him. In this game, 6,600 is still a pretty good price on KJ. It's not a good matchup. Florida's defense is okay, especially up front. They're pretty good. But I'm still going to use him a little bit. Basically is a pivot off like drones and some of the more owned quarterbacks in this range. And I'm trying to just like mix and match the Max Johnsons, the KJs, all these cheap quarterbacks at like 6K to 7K-ish, Granger being the top end of that. I do have more interest in the backfield now that we got some late news. Rashad Dubinian's out. Raheem Sanders is in. AJ Green is averaging 5.9 touches per game. So we might actually get like a vintage Raheem Sanders game. Let's be careful though, and emphasize the word might. He's come back multiple times already this year from the injury and gotten 11 carries and 8 carries. So we're not locked into like a Raheem Sanders 25 carry game circa 2022. You're taking on some risk by playing him, but he's also not expensive. So going to look at him in about 20% of my lineups now with the news. Receiving game's hard to target. They're just not a pass-heavy team to begin with. Andrew Armstrong's too expensive. I'd rather like find my way to Evan Stewart or down to Aeneas Smith. Isaac Tesla is the wide receiver 2, I guess at 4,100, but still not a great play. Then they changed wide receiver 3s. It's a rotation as well. So Tyron Broden, he got benched, but still about 20% of the routes. Jaden Wilson and Isaiah Satina came in and rotated. Then finally, Ty Washington's their tight end. He just only has 3 targets over the last 2 games. So pretty tough to get to them.
On the other side, Graham Mertz has been awesome. 14 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. He takes care of the ball. He can't run at all, though. Where does that put him? Yeah, he is a straight statue. Where does that put him in terms of the QB priorities today?
Pretty low. I'd rather play some of these cheaper guys with upside. Jefferson, Johnson, Granger's in this range, Drones. But I mean, the secondary for A&M's not, or for Arkansas is not great. They're allowing 8.8 yards per attempt, one of the worst secondaries in the SEC. He needs a 300-yard bonus, but he could get it. So cheap play. If you're running 150, maybe you sprinkle him, but I don't have a lot of interest. Same thing with the backs, just a timeshare. They don't run the ball a ton, 55% pass rate. And then in the receiving room, Ricky Pearsall's really expensive. I'd rather just play a stud at this price. For reference, he's like more expensive than Luther Burden. But Eugene Wilson, since he came back from injury, 9 targets, 11 targets at 5,300. He's fine. Even Khalil Jackson, locked in as their wide receiver 3 right now. He hasn't seen any fewer than 4 targets in 4 straight games. 3,800 Khalil Jackson. I think he's okay.
Not cash viable, more tournament pay down?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, with so many running back options, is this a 4 running back cash slate?
Yeah, you could do it.
If Sanders gives it a go, can you play him and Maffa as cheap running backs or prefer one over the other?
Prefer Maffa, but you can play them both.
Yeah, I agree. Maffa's volume is definitely more secure. I don't see any way he doesn't have a ton of volume today. I don't know how efficient he'll be, though.
Yep.
Another meh game, Ohio State. Got to go up to Rutgers and avoid, I don't even know what they need to avoid. I really can't see this being a big problem, and the books agree it's almost 3 touchdowns. But maybe it's a sluggish game, and for DFS purposes, there's a lot to talk about just in the sense of we've got some big-time skill position players, but in a not great game environment. We'll start with Kyle McCord, who, again, he's got the best weapons you could ask for, but is he on the outside looking in the QB rankings today?
Yeah, definitely. He's expensive and he takes sacks. So not playing McCord. I also think they probably just lean on the run against Rutgers. They're still almost 21-point favorites. I mean, huge favorites. Henderson is too cheap. He had 29 touches last game. Mayan Williams out for the year. Chip Trainum stinks. Dallin Hayden, I don't know what he did to Ryan Day, but they're not using him. So, I mean, it's just Henderson and nobody else. They actually, instead of using Dallin Hayden, they used Xavier Johnson at running back. He had 4 carries. Like, he's a receiver. What happened to Dallin Hayden?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter for this slate. Henderson's the best play on the entire slate. That you just play him and figure out the rest. Marvin Harrison will always have merit as a contrarian pay-up option. He's flat out too expensive with like Burden being almost $3K cheaper. But the volume's there. The efficiency's there. McCord only has eyes for him. So if you have the salary to get up to Harrison, sure. I'd rather just pay down for like Burden and the other studs, Stewart. And then beyond that, I'm not going to play anyone on Ohio State. Cade Stover's too expensive at 46. Julian Fleming got benched for the freshman, Carnell Tate. Emeka Ibuka is allegedly back. We said the same thing last week. They did this with Jackson Smith and Jigba, where he warms up, he's supposed to play in games, and then he sits out. I'm at the point with the Ohio State receivers that are hurt where I need to see them play a game before I even think about rostering them. So I didn't get Ibuka anyway. I didn't have to X him out. But I'm personally not going to chase an Ohio State receiver that's dealing with an injury until they play. You can X out Rutgers.
Oh, poor Rutgers. They didn't even get... I was going to ask you about your boy Gavin Wimsatt.
I love Wimsatt, but I'm probably going to bet them in other matchups in the Big Ten, but this is not one of them.
Yeah, he did throw for 39 yards against Indiana. That can't be good. Yeah, I mean, this is not a game. You didn't bet this game, did you?
Nope.
Okay, fair enough. We're making good time. 5 games down, 7 to go. No better time. I just got the word from the people behind the glass that we do have some exciting news, and we were going to tell you guys later in the show, but no better time than the present. If you don't know this, college basketball, which is just the greatest sport, starts on Monday. And because Matt Gajewski is a robot, he has said that he's going to do projections on Big Tuesdays and Saturdays for us, even during college football, and then we'll do more and more. But we're just going to combine college football and college basketball here. So if you are interested in getting that, you're going to get the rest of college football for the week. Anytime you sign up, you're going to get both. Simple way. It's down in the description, Stochastic College. And in addition to that, we're giving you 50% off the first month or week. The promo code is college2023. So when you go there, just type in that promo college2023 and you will get 50% off. You are going to get college basketball and college football for that week, for that month, whatever you do. It's a cool way to get exposure to both sports. You get inside the ropes. There's a lot of value to be had if you're willing to grind. We do the work for you. Certainly, those projections are invaluable. So useful for this. So shout out to college basketball. 360 teams. Made up schools that you never even heard. Lemoyne is now a D1 school. I don't know if you even knew that. They're adding literally creative schools as we speak. It's going to be a good time. Now, where are we? Oh.
Well, we just got some news. They're starting AJ Green in Arkansas, not Rocket Sanders. I don't really know if that matters. I'm anticipating a committee either way, but just for those of you in chat saying you're locking Raheem Sanders, he's not starting.
That is interesting. So do you really adjust anything based off that?
They're both not projecting well, so, and the total's like 49.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I don't know how you're going to spin this, because when I looked at the slate, most of the games made sense. And then Army and Air Force are here. They're on the slate. The total is quite low. And when I say quite low, I mean 32 low. Is this as bad as it gets? I mean, this is like Iowa style.
Yeah, really unfortunate it's on the main slate. To save you time, you can play a contrarian Zach Larrier or Emmanuel Michelle. If you're running one lineup, just exit out.
Cool. I'd
rather like spend time answering questions than talk about this nonsense.
Can I just say, though, I saw Army in person last week and they lost to UMass, and it was bad.
You get your analysis. I don't have any.
No, I actually don't have none, except I will say Army was like trying to throw a little more than normal, and it was bad. Really bad. Air Force is an awesome team. Tempo in terms of betting is the only worry. They play at the slowest pace in the country. You already mentioned, don't mess around with this game. Don't try to be a hero outside of what you already just said. Yeah, we'll save some time and we'll take some questions. And a question right here. Who do you think will be higher owned between Jordan Travis and Dylan Gabriel?
Gabriel by far.
And do you think that's warranted?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I don't think we have really anything else. Denzel Burke is out. Ohio State's entire defense, I think, would have to be injured to pump up Rutgers, unfortunately.
Yeah, they've had DBs out before. Like, this isn't the first game Burke missed. When their freshmen have played, the guys have been amazing. Ohio State is set up for years on defense. Their young freshmen in really good games this year have played just lights out.
Yeah, I mean, they've got dudes on dudes. They've got elite talent behind those guys. That'll be a problem, but not here, maybe against Michigan. Let's talk about Florida State. This is a team, actually, I think that we can spend some time on because there's a lot to break down. So the first thing, they are a big favorite, 21.5 against Pittsburgh. They're on the road. It would be a big melt for them not to get this done. Where is Jordan Travis? We know he's in the Heisman conversation. Is he at the top of the board today?
He's at the top of the board for tournaments. He's just not a cash game play because the ACC is so bad he's never tested, which is the case again. 21.5 point favorites. Travis needs a willing dance partner on the other side. So he's great for tournaments. If Pitt keeps this inside the 3 scores, Travis should play the whole game. They won't neuter their offense, and his ceiling is that of Dylan Gabriel. If this plays like Notre Dame and Pitt last week, Travis is probably going to be out in the third quarter, and he might have like 3 pass attempts in the second half. So wide range of outcomes for him. I like him for tournaments because of that. But yeah, he's volatile, so I would still prefer Gabriel straight up if you're playing cash or one lineup or something like that. Johnny Wilson's out again, so Keon Coleman show. The last 2 games Wilson has missed. He's seen 11 targets. He's also very talented, so you should be considering him anyway. They rotate the hell out of the receiver position beyond Keon Coleman, so it's very hard to get to. The second guy mentioned, Jaheim Bell, he's no longer like 3.8K. You have to pay for him at 5K, so still not like a locked-in target option. Last 2 games without Wilson, he had 5 and 6 targets.
Do you think that Keon Coleman is cash viable, just considering A, how good he is, and then B, without Wilson or too many other pay up options today?
No, in games they slaughtered teams, he had the last 2 times this happened, he had 4 and 6 targets.
Is there a way to stack this game up with that in mind if you think that Pittsburgh can hang, forcing Travis and Coleman to really be pushed?
No, they throw a lot. So, I mean, like last time out against Notre Dame, Bub Means 7 targets, Kanata Mumfield 8, Dejon Reynolds 10. The game prior, Means had 16, Mumfield had 8 again. But even on like 16 targets, I still think you're live to get like 6 catches for 40 yards because of how many Christian Velo passes are uncatchable. The Pitt offense stinks if you've never seen them. So even like 8 targets for Reynolds, I'd probably rather just throw a dart on a good team.
I want to take you back just for a second to Florida State and ask you about that, Trey Benson in that backfield. If they are up by 3 touchdowns, you mentioned the volume maybe for the passing game goes down. Does that render a large share of work for the backfield?
They rotate. So even in blowouts, like Benson hasn't seen more than in the last 4 games, he's eclipsed 11 carries once and he's 6,800. Like he's almost the same price as Brooks, Ollie Gordon. He's just laughably expensive for his role.
For a real good team, it seems like Florida State not getting a lot of love.
No, they again, their team total's high, but we've seen this week in, week out. If Pitt doesn't do their part, like these guys are all dust, except for like maybe Keon Coleman gets a long touchdown or something. But yeah, it's basically just Keon Coleman and Jordan Travis for tournaments where you think Pitt keeps it competitive. And even if they do, like I still don't have interest in Pitt. There's opportunity cost.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I think we can save you some time. You're not going to the Pitt backfield, are you?
No.
That sounds just cruel. Couple comments from chat. Michelle going to get 25, 30 carries and get no ownership. Yeah, I don't think anyone in that Air Force game will get much ownership. So I get the volume.
Look at their box score. He's done that every game, and he finishes with like 60 yards.
It is a tough scene.
He averages 85 per game, and he averages 19 carries.
I love that team, though. They're the coolest.
He also has no catches.
Well, Air Force. Don't hate. Would you rather have Ollie Gordon or Travion?
Travion.
Lad McConkey or Keon Coleman?
Coleman.
Okay. Is there enough value to game stack watching USA? We'll talk about FanDuel at the end here because we're making very good time and some of these games are very disturbing. Anything else from this Florida State Pittsburgh game?
No, we're good.
Okay, moving on. We've got Virginia Tech, Louisville. Interesting game here. I will say I was wrong, and I'm glad to be wrong because I kind of root for them. Virginia Tech's not that bad. Maybe Syracuse is just that abysmal. They certainly looked at last night, but I saw Virginia Tech play a couple games. They've looked okay. Drones has looked actually pretty good. What does that mean for today's slate? Is Virginia Tech a team we got to keep an eye on?
Yeah, Drones has a really high floor. I mean, just if you average like 200 passing yards per game, and then with his rushing ability, he's at like almost 50 yards per game. Like I went on the back end because I thought he was projecting too high, but I don't see how you get him any lower than like 17 DraftKings points as a median projection. He just has such a good floor with that rushing ability. Ceiling, you could definitely question. So for like tournaments, if you want to fade him for KJ, Max Johnson, another cheap quarterback, a running back in this range, that's fine with me. But yeah, Drones has a really good floor at the QB position, even against Louisville.
If you do look to Drones, you mentioned that he's got real dual threat ability. Does that render it running him naked, or is there an attachment that you want?
Yeah, he's one of the quarterbacks I don't force a stack with. They rotate a lot. Daquan Felton, Jalen Lane, Steven Gosnell. I don't really like any of them. So most of my Drones lineups are naked, if not all of them. I'd have to go and look. But I think maybe you could use Bashal Tootin. He's questionable here, but when they get down in games, you see his workload dry up a little bit. That's just what happens when teams are losing. He's a running back. Happens everywhere. So don't love him either. It'll be pretty light on VT for me outside of drones.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Tootin. If he happened to sit, would that make someone pay down option, or that just makes their backfield useless?
I don't think he's going to sit. He was practicing this week.
Okay, so we don't really need to worry about that. I'm just gonna go through them real quick. Ali Jennings is not coming back, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Sadly.
Yeah, he's a stud. You mentioned not a ton of interest in like the Jalen Lanes of the world.
Correct.
Okay. On the other side, Louisville. They've got some playmakers for sure, but they're sporting Q tags. And I know you're tapped in to what's going on in the world. Let's start with Mr. Jordan in the backfield. Do you think he's going to play? What is the latest, and how do you treat that situation?
Truly don't know if he's going to play. I'm guessing he will because he had the hamstring last week and played through it and got 21 carries. But yeah, I flat out do not know. And then Thrash, that was unexpected as well. I don't know if these guys play. But luckily, there's a ton of late news like pivots you could get to. So I'm not really that worried about this. Like the afternoon window is full of stud running backs that you could just swap to. Not to mention the two guys in that very game. But say things go south, like you could find your way to Marcus Carroll for Georgia State. Penn State has Singleton and Katron Allen. Missouri's Cody Schrader. You could use Dewan Edwards for Georgia. Oklahoma, OK State's in that window. So you've got Ollie Gordon. I mean, even FSU Pitt, if you want to get really greasy and play like Trey Benson, there's a lot of potential swaps. So I wouldn't get like too crazy with Jawar Jordan. I did bring him down a little bit in my personal exposure. He was sitting at like 50-ish% of my lineups earlier. I'm bringing him down to 30 because if he plays, I mean, he's probably going to nuke the slate against Virginia Tech, but risky. I mean, I'll just work with the pivots that we have. I think it's pretty strong if you could just pivot right over to one of those other players.
If we get status, I just kind of want to drill down to play the what if game. Say he doesn't play. What happens to Guarendo to you? Is that like you want him in there?
I don't think so. They both become like average plays. Last time this happened, it was 12 carries Guarendo, 12 carries Maurice Turner.
Same question on the outside. Say Thrash is out. Is like Huggins, Bruce, or Coleman or somebody stepping up as the alpha?
I think the best play might actually be Chris Bell, price adjusted. So I'm not 100% sure who would like dominate targets for this team because beyond Thrash, the second most consistent route runner is Bell. He had an 86% route share last game. He's just not targeted a ton, but honestly, none of them are like 2.4 targets per game for Bell. The next highest receiver beyond Thrash is Kevin Coleman at 3.5. So there's not like drastic differences here. Honestly, I'd rather just pay all the way down for Bell and then use that salary to get to like Ollie Gordon or something, if that makes sense. And I'm already playing some Bell to begin with just because his price tag is so cheap. And he's already a full-time receiver with Thrash. So, I mean, I kind of like the flexibility he gives you if you're playing a Louisville receiver. But yeah, I like using some of these 2v2s with Bell rather than, you know, like play Coleman or Bruce or something.
Because of all this uncertainty, and maybe you're going to tell me you didn't want to play him regardless. What happens with Plummer?
He stinks. I X'd him out.
Okay, well, that makes it a little easier. This is not really relevant, but I was scrolling. Joey Gatewood is on Louisville end of receiver.
Yeah.
That Joey Gatewood?
He technically plays tight end. Yes, it's the Joey Gatewood.
Like, that
don't play Joey Gatewood, guys.
No
matter what you do, don't play Joey Gatewood.
Don't. First of all, yeah, if you do that, I think you get probably a virus on the computer. I didn't think Joey Gatewood was still around. Shout out to former, I believe, Auburn and Kentucky at one point, just everywhere. That's not relevant here. Any final thoughts for this game?
Yeah, be ready to pivot. I would say don't be scared of Thrash or Jawar Jordan right now, because if they are in, you're probably getting really good leverage. If they're out, I like the pivots.
All right, we got a couple questions. We have a wild question here. Would you take KJ Jefferson and Sam Hartman over 3.5 touchdowns combined?
Nope.
Neither would I. I don't think so.
Nope.
Brooks or Carroll?
Brooks.
Is Merriweather on Notre Dame viable?
if you're playing the biggest of tournaments.
Okay. McLeod, Granger, viable. Yeah, for sure. We're going to get to that game. Let's talk about Bedlam. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Game lost a little bit because Oklahoma blew it last week, but still a very healthy game, and certainly one I have a feeling you're going to tell me you'd want exposure to for your lineup. Let's start with Dylan Gabriel. We've got him, whoever he's throwing the ball to, whether it's Anderson or Stoops or Farouk or someone else. How do you talk about this Oklahoma passing attack?
Really good game. Best game on the DraftKings slate. Should get up and down. Oklahoma 18th in pace, Oklahoma State 40th. Dylan Gabriel's the best quarterback on the board. Find a way to play him in cash. It is imperative that you do. Otherwise, you're probably going to lose. He's just getting so much work as a designed rusher this year. It's really separating him compared to years prior and from the field. Here are his designed attempts over the last 4 weeks: 6, 9, 6, and 10. He's only taken 7 sacks this year. That's basically 1 sack per game. He already has 294 rushing yards. That's not even considering he's averaging 287 as a passer. And now they have a very willing dance partner on the other side against the secondary ranked outside the top 100 and a team in the Cowboys that play with pace. So Gabriel is the best quarterback play on the board. Play him in cash.
What does that do to Sawchuk and the rest of these running backs? A lot of Q tags. Do you have any insight into how they might distribute carries today?
Nope. Search their names at 2:30 and see who's playing. If there's 2 or less, you can look at them in tournaments. If not, do not play any of them.
On the other side of this game, I mean, I really don't like Oklahoma State, but I have to give them credit. I've tried to short them for feels like a month straight to no success. Gundy's turned around the team. Bowman knows what he's doing. Can we get him out of the way, though? Are you looking to play the passing attack?
Yeah, I like this passing attack. Ooh. Bowman, for some of the negative rushing he's had in the past, he's in the positives this year. 27 cumulative yards. Might not seem like a lot, but when you transition from the negative to the positives, it actually does a lot for your floor. And then he's averaging 31 attempts per game, 197 yards. I'll just say those stats are a little depressed because they were doing this quarterback roulette early in the year and losing to South Alabama and whatnot. Now they're just nuking the Big 12. So, I mean, like, Gundy, get it together. Anyway, Bowman at 6,200. He's right in that range with Johnson, Drones. I mean, you can play him in tournaments. I like full stacking this game, Bowman included. He's also pretty easy to use in the receiving room, I think, like stacking him with pass catchers. Brennan Presley and Rashad Owens are locked in, top 2 options. Last week, they played without Bray, Blaine Green, and Shetron, which opened up Leon Johnson. I imagine at least one of those guys returned, so I don't have a lot of interest in Johnson. But fortunately, Rashad Owens has been a wagon no matter who's in or out. At least 7 targets in 4 straight games, averaging 8.8 targets per game in that span. He's a very good play, cash viable. This is an up and down game. They're projected to lose by a score. So, I mean, should be throwing. They're already a pass-heavy team with that 54% pass rate. Rashad Owens is very good. I guess I skipped over the Oklahoma receivers. Sorry for all of you that played Nick Anderson last week. I did as well. Hopefully his marathon training is going well because the guy's just wind sprinting out on the field for them. But his route rate was awesome, above 80%. I think you could go back in tournaments. I would rank them Farouk 1, Stoops 2, Anderson 3.
So, Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon is making a case for the Heisman, apparently. I mean, is 30 touches a reasonable, like, potential output here? 35? Like, how much is this guy going to get the ball?
A ton. His touches over the last 4 games, 22, 36, 30, and 29. Yeah, he probably touches the ball 30 times here, and he's active in the pass game. Play Ollie Gordon in cash. Just find a way to make it work. So
it seems like the cornerstone pieces from this game would be Gabriel and Gordon?
Yes.
Okay. Are you okay putting Gabriel with no receivers?
For cash, yeah. For tournaments, I'd try to stack him.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else for this game? It's a weird game. I didn't bet it. We had a question about Leon Johnson, who I'll be honest, I really didn't. He just like appeared and then he had like 300 yards in a game.
Yeah, that was because Bray, Blaine Green, and Shetron were all out. So 11 targets for him. He also got hurt in the game. So entirely a late news situation. He's also 200 less than Rashad Owens, who I would rather play straight up.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, I think this is gonna be a good game. Definitely one to target. EMAC in the house. We're rooting your Huskies on today, my friend, and we appreciate you. If you want to hit the like button, join EMAC and getting us over 100 likes. I know we're gonna breeze past that because we got 3 games left. Let's get to a game that's near and dear to your heart: Missouri and Georgia. Between the hedges, unfortunately, for Missouri, but maybe they can pull a major upset. You've mentioned Burden, I think, twice or 3 times in this show already. So this is the time to talk about him, talk about Brady Cook, and talk about what Missouri can do against this Georgia defense.
So I like Missouri. I bet him in this game. Tough place to go play, but Brady Cook is not going to project well. What I'll say about him is that's entirely driven from the spread and the over-under. If you personally think Missouri keeps this closer, he's going to be a much better quarterback to target. I like to compare this to John Rice Plumlee when they faced Oklahoma, where they were 17-point underdogs, and he put up a monster game. Of course, that came down to the wire, and UCF almost won. But if it plays like that, Brady Cook has a similar skill set to Plumlee. He's mobile, was over 500 yards rushing last year, extremely efficient as a passer, 282 per game. Georgia hasn't played anyone good at all this year. This is by far their toughest opponent. So there's still a lot of projection in this spread. If you think Brady Cook plays a game closer than the 15-point spread indicates, he should be in your tournament pool, and he's very easy to stack. They only use Burden, Weeze, and Cooper on the field. Burden has a monster role. 113 yards per game on 10.5 targets per game. He's 6,900. You save 2K by going down from Marvin Harrison to Burden, and there's nothing different with the role. And talent honestly might be comparable, at least more comparable than people are willing to admit. Schrader's also in play for tournaments at 6,200. If this game remains somewhat competitive, he's going to touch the ball like 25 times. He had 26 carries last game, 3 targets, 29 total touches. Nathaniel Pete, it looks like he didn't play. He did. He just got like 3 snaps, and it wasn't injury related. There's a monster upside for Cody Schrader touch-wise. I question the efficiency. Georgia's defense still very good, but tough team for Missouri to face. Also a tough team for Georgia to face on the other side. I like Missouri for tournaments. I would not make big stands with them, but if you just increase your share in a portfolio of lineups, I don't think you need to play a lot of them to be overexposed.
Do you worry, like, I want to ask you specifically about Schrader. Are you playing him potentially with the concept that Missouri keeps it close? Or do you think if they get blown out, he can still get there just on volume and he won't be phased out completely?
So they've been in games that weren't so competitive. Generally, these are like Missouri crushing teams. So we haven't really seen Missouri like trail significantly this year. So I'm not 100% sure that he would be like phased out and they would just, full air raid style offense or something. But in blowout wins, like he had a 13 carry game. Nathaniel Pete only had 2 there, but I mean, they take their foot off the gas occasionally. I guess that's a different scenario than the one you're outlining, but I do think there's some risk of that, just they get down 2 scores, they plays to the spread, and he's game scripted out, if you will. That's definitely a risk, and why I prefer playing Henderson there. I'd rather find the salary to get to Ollie Gordon for, less than $1,000 making that jump. So he's risky, but tournament-wise, the volume is very good.
On the other side, talk to me about Carson Beck. We had a question about him on FanDuel as well. I know the pricing a little different over there. What do you expect from him and Georgia and his pass catchers? Of course, they all have to step up with without the presence of Bowers, who is just an absolute monster.
Beck's averaging 309 yards per game. Tough matchup. Missouri has a good secondary with Rakestraw, Abrams, Drain. So I think it's the toughest matchup Beck has faced all year, but they're passing a lot, 51% pass rate. Missouri plays relatively fast. They're a little above average in pace. So this one sets up to be maybe a little more exciting than previous Georgia games. He doesn't run much, which is a concern, but he's kind of like Travis to me, where there's massive upside if the dance partner is willing. So I'm not Xing Beck out by any means, trying to specifically play him in some tournament lineups. And having Bowers out created sort of like the opportunity to stack him a little cheaper. Dominic Lovett, Ladd McConkey, Ra Thomas are your 3 wide receivers. Very clearly, too. They're all at middling price points. I think you can mix and match them. And Beck is almost similar to Brady Cook, where how much do you really have to play to get over the field with him? So that's something I'm trying to do. I'm coming in around 15% right now. I think that's going to be over the field. And then last thing to really note on the pass catchers, we all played Delp last week. He did not have a full-time role. About 60% of the routes, they use Lawson, Lucky, and Pierce Spurlin more than they should have. But yeah, that hurt him, and he only had one catch.
What about Georgia's backfield?
They returned Kendall Milton, which means it's now a 50-50 committee between Dewan Edwards and Milton. Edwards is priced like Ollie Gordon, and his role is like Katron Allen. So he's too expensive. Milton is about efficiently priced, I think, at 54. I'd rather use him, but not a ton of interest in the Georgia backs.
Anything else from this game?
I'll echo what Deep 98 Purple said. Lad is good.
Yeah, he's a player. It's gonna be a
He's
good
not
game.
a top wide receiver play, but he's really good.
Yeah, I think Georgia's gonna look pretty good today. I hope Missouri wins. I'm rooting for him. Tough spot. Will be a real good one to watch. 2 games left, and then we'll definitely get some Washington USC thoughts because USC is not a serious team, particularly on defense. Penn State, they were not a serious team last week. They just not interested in that game. They better be interested here because they could get tripped up. I don't think they're going to, but talk to me about what they face with Maryland hosting them.
I bet them. I think they're going to bounce back, and
I hope.
Their defense is just so good. Maryland's been terrible. I don't know how they have any success against this elite Penn State defense who's built through their secondary. Maryland runs an air raid. I'm not playing Drew Aller. He's basically Cade Klubnik of the Big Ten. I do have interest in Singleton and Katron Allen. If we get the wrong Jawar news that he's out, I'll be swapping to these guys a lot. And then in the pass game, it's Keandre Lambert-Smith or pass. Harrison Wallace went down. I think the most likely replacements are
You see what happens? Oh, you're back.
What's that?
Nothing. You froze, and I thought I was going to have to step in and start talking about.
Where did I freeze? Apparently my computer's telling me the internet is unstable here.
Yeah, I think really what happens. It was when you were talking about how bad Maryland was. It was during that monologue. So you're good.
Well, yeah, that's easy.
Okay.
The only guy in Maryland I think you look at is Dykes. I wasn't even talking about that, but yeah, 3,900 for the tight end who had 10 targets. Not playing Prather, Jones, or Felton against the secondary. Penn State, you can't play Aller. He's Big Ten Cade Klubnik. You can play the back, Singleton and Katron Allen. We saw them come off a 15 carry game for Singleton, 18 for Katron Allen. I like these guys a ton of swaps if Jawar Jordan is out, and they're already pretty decent plays. In the receiving game, it's basically just a contrarian Keandre Lambert-Smith or pass. With Harrison Wallace getting hurt, they used more Dante Cephas and Malik McClain, but they'll use a lot of 2 tight end stuff and weird stuff that limits the wide receiver 2s and 3s. So that's about it. It's not a great game.
Yeah. Anything else I really think we can kind of just take this game as a whole. It's a, sub 10-point spread, but I think Penn State kind of just grinds them down. They got bigger things going on when Michigan comes to town, but anything else from this game?
Nope.
I mean, we kind of talked about this, but if Jawar Jordan gets ruled out, who would be the pivot in that price range if you had him in the flex?
Ollie Gordon? Or do you need me to go under, like a guy
Probably.
cheaper?
I mean, well, Travion would have started. What games are?
There's a lot of guys in the late window.
Yeah, there's plenty of.
Like Mark, I mean, I would just find a way to get up. Marcus Carroll's right there. I mean, you've got Cody Schrader, cheaper if you need to go down. Ollie Gordon's right there. Like, it's not hard to make a 500 swap off Jordan to Gordon. But I understand some of you guys are playing on your phone. You're probably using like Global Swap and stuff. I would probably just go down to Cody Schrader or a Penn State back.
Would you rather play Kendall Milton or Trayshawn Ward on FanDuel?
Milton.
Okay, Milton. Let's get this last game in, and then we'll talk about Washington USC. We'll bounce on out here. But again, we're always around at Stokastic. There's going to be NFL content later. You always want to be part of this channel. We want you as part of this community. You can always hit that like button, subscribe to this very channel. Make sure you check out everything in the links. I know I always say that on these shows, but just see what we got. It doesn't mean you have to sign up for all this stuff. We have deals down there, ways to get involved with sites like Prize Picks, ways to get money off some of our packages if you've been thinking about signing up. It's really a great way to get yourself closer and closer to community and get some tools that can make you some money. James Madison and Georgia State, getting this game right could make you some money. JMU is awesome. They have an elite front. I want to hear how you think Georgia State can, if they can move the ball with Carroll and Granger. And then on the other side, what you think of McLeod in the quarterback rankings.
Yeah, there's some really cheap guys here. Granger is going to project well because he runs a lot. He's 448 yards. So the floor is good with him. He's kind of like slightly more expensive drones in a better game environment. So I wouldn't X out Granger. He also has a locked-in alpha and Robert Lewis coming off a 17 target game. They lost Josiah Credle earlier this year, and the second most consistent receiver route-wise has been Kadarius Thompson. He's 3,100, so if you need a pure value play, he's the guy I'd get to. A lot of you ask for min-price receivers. He's 31. Marcus Carroll's averaging 26.5 carries per game. You can play him in any matchup based on that price.
If you were, are you looking to like stack this game or anything, or is it more just kind of picking pieces?
You can stack it because they're all underpriced for the total. So McLeod is too cheap. He runs. He's averaging 250 through the air per game. That's very good. Kalen Black and Tyson Lawton, it's a timeshare, but they're 5,200 and 4,700. I will say that the matchup is tough. Georgia State's very strong up front, but their secondary is horrific. So the three wide receiver sets, Reggie Brown, Elijah Surratt, and Phoenix Sproles are all way too cheap. Sproles at 3,700, averaging 5 targets per game over the last 4. Reggie Brown's at 8.5 and Surratt's at 8. These are all elite plays.
How many of that, like, are you looking to maybe QB +2 them?
You can definitely do that. They're really
Okay.
cheap. The only thing I'll say is they're all going to be owned, so be careful.
Yeah. Clown World at Jam, you won't get to a bowl game. That's true. Real dumb stuff there.
They won't get to a bowl game.
They should change all those rules. It's so stupid. Bellarmine would have won the they'd have a banner hanging right now if it wasn't for these fools. Cash QB priority after Dylan Gabriel. Is it Drones? Is it somebody else?
It's probably Drones, but I don't feel strongly.
Judkins or Henderson would be Henderson for me and you, I assume, right?
Mm-hmm.
Largest live money line underdogs.
Missouri.
North Texas. Let's steal one of yours. Who else could do something about outrageous today?
Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri. You can go with Missouri, and I'll give you one more. I'm just scrolling through the board. Not Merrimack, no. Not BYU, not Rice. There's a world where Colorado beats Oregon State, but I hope it's not this world.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Pac-12, we got a couple minutes left and we'll get some questions, but give me a quick elevator pitch on one of the games of the day. Penix, USC. He could have 500 yards in this game. How are you approaching that game if it was on the slate and if, for FanDuel purposes?
I try to play at least one of the QBs. They're both elite. O'Dunes and Polk are awesome plays. Jeremy Bernard's your cheap receiver on Washington. USC has consolidated their receivers more than you'd think. Brendan Rice and Taj Washington there. The running backs are also in really good spots, and I don't think anyone's going to play them. For those of you being contrarian, Marshawn Lloyd and Dylan Johnson are also excellent. But yeah, you need to be playing some of that game. Please do that.
Do you think we didn't really talk about this much, and I don't think it's going to be a major change. Do you think Arkansas will look any different with a new offensive coordinator?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
I mean, they can't be any worse. Judkins or Singleton in a GPP?
Judkins.
Surratt and Sproles both in DK cash? ?
I prefer just one, but if you can't find something else you like, you can do it.
Yeah, I get it. They are very underpriced. We don't know about best flex 4,100 and under. There are some names down there. Let's see.
Sproles.
Yeah, maybe there's not as much as I thought. That game really does kind of help for, salary relief. Yeah, Jordan, your flex, blah, 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 all that. Washington seems like the lock of the day.
I bet him.
I get it. Maffa is playable today on DraftKings. Yes.
Yeah.
Enough value to play. Oh yeah, this is a good question. Is there enough value to full jam that game and play Caleb with Penix?
Yep. I don't remember how I did it. I'm doing my CSVs right now, but yeah, I do have some with that. I mean, you could play Jeremy Bernard. You could play the backs. I mean, there's FanDuel always has like 7 receivers that are too cheap.
Yeah. Drones and Carroll or McLeod and Maffa. So basically, you want the pay down quarterback with Drones and then you get Carroll, or maybe pay up for McLeod and then punt with Maffa.
I'd rather have the drone side. Drone strike, Steve. Drone strike. There you go.
Drone strikes. Yes, there we go. Green or Sanders for a GPP?
Who's Green?
I
And who's
assume
Sanders?
I assume it's both.
Oh,
Arkansas
AJ
running
Green
backs.
and Raheem Sanders, the
Yeah.
both. Raheem Sanders.
Yeah, I think I would take Sanders as well. Yeah, we got you. We got in the drone strike. Which game will be higher owned between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in that JMU game? I think it'll be the Bedlam game just because of Gabriel and Ollie Gordon driving a ton of ownership. But what do you think?
I agree with you. They're both going to be mega owned though. Like the best avenue to get Ollie Gordon and Dylan Gabriel is using those cheap JMU receivers.
What about Chris Tyree over Sproles if I already have the other two James Madison wide receivers?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm worried. That's going to be a weird game. I really hope there's no points. Schrader or Lloyd for FanDuel. Schrader on Missouri or Lloyd for USC.
Lloyd.
Okay, man, it is like an 80-point total. So I get it. We got about 2 minutes left here. I just want to ask how you feeling. You in good shape over there? Feeling good?
I'm pretty hungry, but yeah,
Okay.
my CSVs are in.
CSVs are in. Need some food. It's also the Breeders' Cup today that has nothing to do with college football, but it is the Breeders' Cup. Leon Johnson or Tyree would be Tyree for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is almost dinner time for you. And I think we're in pretty good shape here. If you have any questions and we don't get to it, at Matt_Gajewski, follow this man. He will be retweeting. If you want to know, is Thrash playing? Is Jordan playing? He'll be on it. That's where I find out about all this. I found out that your boy on Syracuse, Schrader, was in street clothes because of you yesterday. And then I watched, I took years off my life watching that game. Luther Burden or Coleman? It would be Burden for me.
Yep.
Who wins, LSU or Alabama? Go to my Twitter and find out, my friend. I'm walking around outside. That's a tough game. I went back and forth there. I settled on Bama. I think you like LSU, though.
I only took LSU because I knew the line was going to move, and I have a phenomenal number +4.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. I got Bama at 3. It's a tough game. There's no doubt about it. Friends, I think we're in good shape. Burden or Carroll at the flex. I would go Burden again. I really like Burden. I think he's going to be busy today.
Yes.
I think we did it. 12 up, 12 down. Prize picks in the books. And again, college basketball is going to be here on Monday. Sign on in. Use that code college 2023, and you're going to get college football and college basketball for the week or for the month 50% off. Check in on it. It's just a good deal to at least scoop around. Me and Matt will be back next week, and Mike Lawrence powering us behind the glass, doing a great job as always. We're going to bounce on out of here. Appreciate you guys. Good luck today. Let's cash some tickets, win some tournaments, and then tweet us. We love seeing those screenshots. I want to see some hopefully at the top of the board today. But until next time, guys, good luck. Enjoy the slate. We'll see you soon.